Hey everyone. Okay, so right out of the gate, I gotta say, this is one of those episodes that feels like the purest definition of fun. Like, Luffy's having so much fun fighting Kaido in this episode, and it's because Luffy's having so much fun that you can't help but smile and embrace the fun of the episode along with him. And of course, it goes without saying that you can clearly tell, like last episode, the animators were having a ton of fun making this episode, because in each and every moment, it feels like they've been waiting to animate this episode for their whole lives, in the same way that there's a lot of people who've probably been waiting to watch it in this format as well. And yes, that whole scene of Luffy trapped in Kaido's stomach was a definitely shared there's so many highlights in this episode that just was so much fun to watch, whether it was Luffy getting caught in Kaido's stomach, whether it was Luffy's gum giant form or whatever, or even just like the simple, even something as like should be morbid as like Luffy losing control of his power and his whole body basically looking absolutely dehydrated after be absolutely deflated, I guess actually is more proper term. But yeah, just so many moments that were so great to see animated. And how long do you think the animators have been waiting to animate this? Because I'll bet they've been chomping at the bit for a while now. In all seriousness though, not too long after the initial couple minutes of the episode, we see Luffy had already kind of lost control of Gear 5. And even though it was only temporary before bouncing back and regaining control of the form, it still does show that Gear 5 does take away more out of him than any other gears, as proven when he finally does lose complete control of the form. And again, we see his body's just kind of shriveled up and deflated from the whole experience. It's one of those moments that, again, it's funny, but it does show that even more so than any of the other gears, he has the Gear 5 is a form that does take more out of him than any of the other ones. And the trick now is for him to learn to maintaining it is that's now the biggest hill for him to climb, not helped by the fact that he was already at death's door when the power activated. So that just kind of adds to the problem, which up against Kaido is probably the worst possible time for any of this to be happening. Don't get me wrong, it is fun to watch Luffy clown on Kaido, but he does need to finish this quick. With the only saving grace we are seeing more and more that the longer this fight goes on, the more it is taking just as much of a toll on Kaido as it is Luffy. But I think Luffy might be the first to go if he's not careful. Now, with that said, we also get a check-in with everyone else in the episode, and one moment I do want to focus on in particular is the scene between Kid and Law, who, on top of having the usual back and forth, and Law giving a heartfelt speech, we also see Kid declare he isn't going down before Law or Luffy, and that's one of those moments for me as a manga reader where I can't help but scratch the back of my head and awkwardly chuckle for saying, "So, who here wants to tell him?" 'Cause yeah, Kid, I've got some rather unfortunate news from the future to tell for you, but both you and Kid, but especially you, are let's just say you guys are gonna get mollywopped in the future, which you guys are gonna get mollywopped in the future. I'm just saying, but again, looking back, and it's one of those moments where I just kind of look back and say, man, did they do Kid dirty after this arc? And I do mean that pseudo spoilers, I suppose, but immediately after making it out of Wano, both Law and Kid again get their asses mollywopped, and it is kind of hard to watch, especially after it was definitely hard to watch, especially after they struggled so much to defeat Big Mom. So it's just hearing Kid say that, but also knowing what lies ahead in the future for him. Yeah, it's Yeah, it's definitely awkward to say the least. And although getting away from that, it is still funny as fuck to see Luffy's face pop so cartoonishly through the ceiling, and seeing everyone's have that shared reaction to his new form, and just like question, wait, was that Luffy? What the fuck was that? And yeah, you gotta love Luffy's again. You gotta love Luffy's persistence and drive even as he's dried up and shriveled up like a shriveled up husk. He still has the will to get back up and fight Kaido to the bitter end. You kind of gotta respect him for that. Now, I suppose I do want to talk art and animation in a little more detail with this episode, because what I'm about to say might sound a little blasphemous or controversial, but I do think the art and animation was a little bit better in this episode than the last episode, and it's honestly for no other reason than everything felt a little more solid in this episode, and how the character models and line work was done, whereas with last episode, while having a lot of great moments of art and animation, there were a few moments that were more than a little rough around the edges. Like, for example, I know I brought this up last week, but there was a whole scene where Kaido looked like a splash of watercolor paint splashes on the screen, and to be fair, right out of the gate, that might have been an artistic choice, but even then, the best defense I can muster for that moment, I still kind of circle back to it. It just looked a bit too jarring. Whereas with this episode, even the weaker bits of artwork still felt more solid in the character models and line work, and it didn't feel like anything was like really completely off model, or nothing felt like there was like lines missing, or just like a solid or just something to make the character models look solid. No, like everything, even the weakest, it still looked like a solid character model. Also, the choice of using Over the Top as a background track for the back section of the fight was actually more fitting than I thought it would be. But then again, I guess it, like, when you get the Over the Top opening is kind of the theme of Wano itself. So it was the one that introduced us to Wano in the anime. So I guess it does make sense that the studio would go for that as a background track, and it does work. I'm not gonna lie, it really does work. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst, Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight Advance signing off. Later, everyone.